A lot of you have been asking for a second Q&A stream. Whatever you guys want me to show you, I will do my best to show you and explain. Are you working on a new solo album, Metropole 3? So yes, solo album, working on a first full length, but it won't be called Metropole 3. I don't have a title yet. Like both EPs, the part 1 and part 2 together were basically like, I guess like a completed project. And we toured like on that chapter, if you will. We expanded upon it. And I've said everything that I had to say regarding, I don't know, those tunes, which was very fun. And I'm very grateful for that. So I guess like the Chromeo project that dropped in December was something to, I don't know, to put out while you guys wait for the next LP. But it's coming together nicely and I'm hard at work. Some of the ideas you've heard on the streams might end up there too. We'll see what happens. Sometimes I like take elements from the stream idea and then apply it to something I'm already working on. Do you master your own songs or have any mastering tips? Yeah, so I do, but I'm not sure like I'm the the right person to ask about mastering. I would very much like to find like a partner to exchange ideas with. I actually have someone in mind for the LP project specifically. I don't know, like it's something that I have like a hard time sometimes dealing with because I'm like very involved in the creation process and mixing process. I've just found that like some of my stuff on that level has been like uneven because I tend like to sometimes obsess about small details and then I kind of like lose the sense of the bigger picture. When it comes to arrangement, I will try to like keep a balance and still like try to aim for the main goals I have in mind, and I'm usually like able to do that. But I think I'm like seriously lacking someone to exchange with about that specifically. But so far, I usually do like some back and forth between like some mixing decisions and the mastering ones as well. But I try to have like the arrangement completely done, so I won't like change that kind of stuff. But my mastering training is usually like pretty simple. If there's like some drastic EQing decisions to be made, I will sometimes have an EQ on the master, but like very rarely. It will usually be like some slight compression and limiting. And then everything that's like stereo, imaging, and EQing, I'll try to prioritize like individual tracks, but mostly groups and buses. For EQing too, like I feel like as long as your project like feels coherent, that's a big part of mastering as well. So whether it means like more highs or less is also like a creative choice. There are some wrong answers, but at the end of the day, it's also subjective depending on the context. But there's obviously like a lot of references out there, and there are some rules, and I'm sure I'm sure I break a lot of them. So I don't know. I know that's maybe not like the most satisfying answer, but I hope it still helps. Do you live off of music? Yes, I do. I've been very fortunate. Well, music generally for like the past 7 years, which is I'm every time I think about it, I'm very happy. But Anomalie specifically, like shortly after Metropole 1 dropped, I switched to Anomalie like 100% of like I invested 100% of my time in the project, and it started like the second half of that year went pretty well. Then I did have like some pretty intense debt going on when we started touring because I was investing a lot of my own money in that. But shortly after that, when like the whole touring thing started picking up, since that I've been living quite well from Anomalie only. So it's a very cool era to make music. It's definitely very possible because there's a lot of avenues, but I think the key is to diversify your sources of income. You won't like necessarily rely strictly on streaming or strictly on doing sessions for other people. But if you're able to like have multiple activities, it can all be related like to one project if you want. But I feel like that's the key or like one of the main things about making a living as a musician today, at least. And that's what I've in my experience so far. But yeah. What is a keyboard figure behind you? Oh yeah, I will. I'll show you. This is actually a gift from my girlfriend's mom. It's a tiny me with like that tilted keyboard and a little MacBook with the A It's pretty epic. And then Mode, my girlfriend, also has one of her. It's very cool. Did you have a plan B if music didn't work out for you? Whether like Anomalie worked or not, I was already like doing stuff related to music. So I was very fortunate to have been like living off music for a while now, like on different levels as far as like salary went, because there was a while I was like doing strictly restaurant gigs and that sort of thing, and doing like I don't know, like local bar gigs as well, which was amazing. One of the best years of my life. But I also did like music for, custom made music for pitches, royalty free libraries, that kind of thing. I did that for a while. But a plan B, I guess if it was an Anomalie, I would still be very much like focusing on composing, because I did open up quite a lot of avenues through like the previous work I had done before. But when I was younger, I always told myself that if music didn't work out, I'd open like a little burger shop or something. It might be something I'll do later in my life. We'll see. A little vegan joint. Where did you get your jazz education? I got most of like my jazz education at Cégep Saint Laurent here in Montreal. I studied with an amazing woman and a pianist called Lorraine Desmarais. She's amazing. Seriously, she's like a piano hero, an amazing teacher. I learned so much from her and from the other amazing teachers at that school for like arranging. And then after school, I did transcribe during school as well, but I transcribed a lot more after school. So that was definitely like there's some areas where I feel like I improve more after, but there's a lot of things that I just wouldn't have gotten if it weren't for the education I got there. Any tips for slowly developing dexterity on piano? Have a hard time with double stops. It's way more important. I know this is like very like generic and it doesn't only apply to technique, but it's much more important to be regular as far as like your practicing schedule goes. Like it's much more important to play every day than to like do like a huge, I don't know, like several hours of practicing, because that way like it's not like for no reason that we always say that you got to sleep on something, because there's like some activity that's going on in your brain once you're practicing something and you sleep on it, and then the next day like it's easier. There's a process that's going on in the background. So take your time. If you can play it slow, at some point you'll be able to play it fast. Sometimes it'll take longer than you'd wish for, but if there's an exercise you have trouble with or problems with, do it like every day, multiple days in a row. Try to do it like with both your hands. Try to do it like in several keys, and then the more you repeat it, the more it'll become a part of your physical memory, and then you can move on to the next one. What's your composing process? What would you advise a jazz musician to start producing without getting overwhelmed with electronics and just messing up with tools? What I do on stream is my process. The main difference between the on stream and off stream is that off stream I might spend like 20, 30, if it's not more minutes sometimes, like working on a sound, and I'll do that throughout the week, like when I'm not creating too, because it's important like to just stay up to date with my like just sound design approach and that kind of thing. So the main difference is that, and then there's the arranging part. So like once I've developed an initial idea, I'll arrange it. So I'll try to develop it furthermore, and then usually come up with like a B section, a C section, or a bridge or something. And that process, once I come up with the new sections, will also be very, 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 very similar to what you see me do on stream. So I usually like try to have a couple of sounds ready. Sometimes if I mess around with like a certain VST or synth here, sometimes like whatever sound I come up with will guide the idea that comes afterwards. But I usually start with drums and percussion. In some cases, like if I've recorded an idea previously, like on my phone or something, I have a voice memo, and then I want to start arranging that. I'll start focusing on that, and then percussion and drums will come later. Do you have any interest in doing something with the tuning that doesn't fit 12 tone equal temperament? Yeah, I'd definitely be interested. I think the closest I've been to that, but obviously it's not that. I'm still always like in a conventional tuning, whether that means like not necessarily 440, but it's always like equal temperament, right? And basically like Western scales. I did like obsess about tuning in certain songs because it doesn't matter like if there's like a melody line whether like it's a synth lead or it's a strings line. there's like always like some wiggle room for tuning, right? Where your bass could be like, there could be like a slight wobbling in it. Your singer could be like just a little bit sharp, but then the sharpness is not necessarily one um, like it's not like too intense that you'd actually like notice it and sound unpleasant. But then sometimes just a little bit of sharpness will make something like cut through a little bit more. And that's actually something they did in orchestras, where like the violins, the main violins, so the first section would be tuned like slightly up so that the melody would like cut through a little bit more. And that to me is very interesting. But all of that to say that like in tunes like Daybreak, for example, where like it's like a pretty piercing synth lead. I was obsessing like for days about the tuning of that, like whether it needed like to be 5 cents down or 8 cents up. It's like, and then I was showing it to Mo, and it was like she was like saying like this is not something that people are going to notice, and I'm like maybe not like consciously, but it was like after you've listened to the songs like 3 times in a row, it was like bothering me, and not me like at certain points you agree with me. So like finding that little space for like the main melody or like an element that's like super present, uh like I was never able to get it like perfectly in tune with the rest of the song because like there was some Rhodes, some piano, some whirly, some different synths, and they all have like different responses depending on like which register they're using. So tuning is very interesting. That's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes it can be frustrating, but sometimes you don't have to think too much about it. Sometimes like every single element can have like some, I don't know, like wobbling or variation in tuning, and then it still works. But then let's say you have like something that's super precise on top of it, and then it clashes. So there's no right or wrong answer, but you just need to experiment, I guess. So you EQ the Keyscape piano with only EQ8 or extra third-party plugins. So it's currently not EQ'd, but in some cases I will use the Omnisphere Keyscape EQ beforehand, and then mess around with the compression and tape settings. The built-in reverb sounds super good too. I run it through. I have like a slight compression here going on through the console here, and then the EQ like will really depend on the project. Most of the time EQ8 for like some slight modifications. There's like I've used like several compressors, different different VSTs on the Keyscape piano depending on the song. Sometimes super compressed, sometimes not. Sometimes boosted the highs for like that little noise in the background. The sparkle. Sometimes like super hollow. Sometimes super dark. I don't have like a formula for the way I approach it. It really depends on the song. Let's say E flat, right? Minor third and a C minor chord, major third and a B major chord. With the piano is basically like a tuning compromise where everything is like sort of out of tune. Because in theory, D sharp in a B major chord and E flat in a C minor chord wouldn't exactly be the same note. There would be like a slight difference ideally. And then most of the time you won't really like bother with that. But there are certain cases where like I have like I don't know, like a huge hit chord that's held, and I have like a synth lead that's sweeping and like pitch bending the target note. Sometimes like I'll slightly adjust where I like keep the pitch bend at for that target note, depending on like what interval that note is or what degree that scale is like within the chord that it's at. So that's the closest I've got like to, I guess, like different intervals within the octave. What goes in your mind when you're adding chords to a tune? So when I'm messing around on stream, most of the time it's just flowing, and I try to like react as fast as I can to whatever's going on. But when I stop to make choices and try to consider potential alternatives, it's basically like a little pocket that opens and shows me like the options that I've learned throughout time. And if I'm working on something specific that week, I try to focus on those new ideas that I incorporated that week and consider it as an option. But it's really like just a little window, and then a combination of those options and the physical memory that kicks in. And then let's say we're in G sharp, I want to go to C sharp. we're just vamping on 1 and 4. And then let's say I want to do like an approach. So I did like an altered chord on the C below it. I could do just parallel. I could do dominant. I could do tritone sub 2/5. A whole like parallel, I guess, like descent. I guess I did like I don't really know what I did. I did 5 of E flat here, so going like to the dominant 2 and then circling with the alternate on the 7 that I did before. So there's certain cases like just right now where I like don't immediately know what I did, but somewhere in the back of my mind I do, because I learned it at some point and then I'll analyze it after. What is a parallel descent? Whether it's descent or ascending, it's basically using the same either voicing or chord quality and just going up a certain movement. So let's say all minor chord with sus chords. That's parallel going. How do you improve your feel on drunk Dilla swing? Get drunk. Amazing. That's the answer. Whether it's Dilla swing or bossa nova or samba, whatever feel you're working on, just play it. Play over it, loop it, learn songs, practice over songs that have the feel you're trying to incorporate. Transcribe performances or solos that have that feel so that you can replicate that. Players or producers try to integrate it and replicate it through repetition. And then once you're like a little bit comfortable with it, you can try to like step out of it and improvise around that feel. But there's no other secret, whatever you're trying to learn, than to integrate it by repeatedly doing it. How do you approach left-hand comping and piano solo? So I'm actually a terrible reference for this because I never like really properly did it. There's some like transcriptions where I'll force myself to like play it exactly as a player does. But I mean, Kiefer was here previously. You should really ask Kiefer. I think he would probably give you a way better answer. But I think like my answer would be like basically the same as for the Dilla swing. Try to transcribe like piano solos and focus on the left hand of those players and try to like just play that. And like just play that rhythm, try to play the variations. If you like spot a pattern that comes through in several bars, that's probably something that you should do if that's the style you're trying to learn, and then you can repeat that and integrate it. Why is your keyboard tilted when you're playing live? So the initial reasoning behind it was when I started touring with Grammatic as his keyboard player. I did that for like a little bit more than a year before I brought in the Anomalie live band to start touring Metropole. You know, he had like his DJ table, and I was just bringing like a little 61 key controller. And I remember just seeing some comments of people saying that like I was faking or something, which I could kind of understand, because like I was with Grammatic, I'm always playing over like the fully produced tracks, and no elements were like taken away to make room for the keyboard. So sometimes I'll like just take a sound to blend in. So since I saw those, I was like, all right, let's like just bring it slightly up so that people can see what's going on. And then for Anomalie, specifically for like the Anomalie live show, it just makes it more visually interesting, where like I feel like the keyboard as a lead instrument can be, especially when there are like several sounds going on, it can be like not as easy or interesting like to connect as opposed to like a guitar. Like a guitar solo, like you just see what's going on. A singer, you see like the mouth movements, like you immediately make the mental connection. Whereas a keyboard, sometimes like it's a little bit more, not necessarily hard to follow, but like maybe less entertaining on that side of things. But obviously, like it's not a huge deal. But I thought that as like the lead or the leader of the band, like in the front, and because like the keyboard is like the main focus of the tracks, I thought it would make sense to try to explore that. So that's the reasoning behind it. How much tilt is too much tilt? I guess too much tilt is when your keyboard falls. Hit me up in the Discord if there's anything you want to follow up with me about, like whether it's certain setup or anything really. It'll be my pleasure. Take care and much love. Take care.